Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Labour's plan to introduce proper critical thinking lessons into our education system, something that has been badly needed for a very long time and given impetus by the recent vulnerability that we have shown to what should have been obvious disinformation. However, I'm also going to explain, as someone who's worked as a teacher for over 20 years before switching to moaning at a camera, how this is probably not going to end up being a programme for teaching critical thinking unless the new Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, is a lot more strategic than any of her predecessors, Tory or Labour. Because as a teacher, I've seen government initiatives like this introduced quite a few times. Under both Labour and the Conservatives, I have to say, and they always go the same way. In this regard, there is no difference between Labour and the Conservatives. The general ideas and aims sound good, they really do. But because what they call the plan behind them never actually took account of the reality in schools and colleges, these initiatives always end up going the same way. And if Phillipson doesn't face up to the realities in the classroom this time, her so-called plan for critical thinking lessons is going to go the same way as all the others. That being said, I don't judge her yet. I'm more than happy to see how this pans out. I should also point out I'm very happy with the way she's presented this idea. That she wants critical thinking taught in primary and secondary schools. I'm loving that. During the last Labour government, there were efforts to introduce critical thinking, but it was basically at the 16 to 19-year-old end of education, things like science and public understanding, and there was a similar non-science-based course as well, but like AS level. There wasn't really emphasis on the skills lower down the schooling ladder. And of course, as soon as the Tories came back to power, what critical thinking teacher Labour had introduced was immediately axed, which could still be the fate for this new plan, even if it's implemented properly. But will it be implemented properly? Until I see the details, can't say for certain, but I can say how similar plans have worked out 100% of the time. And if the same sort of corporate muppets that have advised education secretaries in the past are advising Phillipson now, this is how it's going to go. So in terms of how it's been reported, Phillipson talks about how you could have opportunities to teach critical thinking in English lessons concerning analysing newspaper articles to differentiate between fabricated stories and true reports, computer lessons to spot fake news websites, maths lessons to analyse statistics in context. Absolutely true. You could 100% build these sorts of lessons into those subject areas. It would be relevant to those subject areas as well as bedding in critical thinking skills. All sounds marvellous. I particularly like the idea of having it done as a coordinated approach across different subject areas, because then it means students have different teachers delivering critical thinking skills, increasing the chances that at least one does it really well. However, I've been here before quite a few times. Right, Phil, you're going to plan your lessons in future to highlight opportunities for, I don't know, let's say literacy and numeracy skills. Big drive from the Department for Education. You're going to support the development of these really important skills cross-curriculum. You're going to spot opportunities to promote these ideas in your lessons. So you do. But it's largely a paper exercise. The bottom line is what you're judged on is the performance of the students in assessments. And that's what they're judged on. And if your students are sitting an assessment based on, I don't know, the physics specification, that's what your time in lessons is spent on. Teachers already don't get enough planning or delivery time as it is. Obviously, teaching science includes a certain level of both numeracy and literacy anyway, but you would have already been teaching that. Why would a teacher spend less time teaching the stuff on which you're professionally judged to spend more time on something that nobody is assessing at all? Because that's how it is. That's what would be asked here. It's not going to be assessed, these critical thinking skills. It's not going to form part of the assessment. If you want a teacher to introduce new teaching, they have to chop teaching they'd already been doing or plan to do. But who's going to chop the teaching of things relative to this, relevant to the assessment? That's not how it works. This is how it works in practice. The Department for Education wants some soft or core skills teaching. Some corporate idiot points out how easy it would be to fold into the existing lessons, utterly clueless about the fact that time is already stretched to teach what we're judged on. Doesn't work because it's a paper exercise. All you do is you have to produce extra paperwork showing how you've developed these skills in a way you would have basically done. You don't change your lessons because that would be mad, because then you're making your students less likely to succeed in the assessment. So you just try and come up with some way of documenting how you were doing it anyway. So it doesn't happen. You don't actually build in any extra teaching. You don't teach critical thinking in this case. It just quietly disappears as a policy. Or maybe the Department for Education is serious. Occasionally they are. And they really want it pushing. They don't give up. Sometimes that happens. So then teaching leaders say, well, we're either going to have to cut down the curriculum to make room. You basically need to make it part of what's judged, what's assessed, or we're going to need separate dedicated lessons for this skill. Well, no government has cut down the curriculum while I've been a teacher, so it's always that second option. So you stick it in general studies or PSE or whatever you call the class, which basically acts as a bucket to catch the teaching of what the government of the time thinks is important, but not important enough to properly resource. But in theory, you still have a solution. It's being taught, lesson time is being given over to it. I mean, now it's just one teacher with one perspective who may or may not be naturally good at teaching that subject, because they certainly won't have been trained for it. Oh, and there might not be any money for training. And if there is, the private organisation delivering the training may not do it well. They certainly won't have done a fact-finding mission in some country that does teach critical thinking and knows what it's doing. It'll have just made it up on the spot and then offer the training to any school that's got enough money to afford it, which right now is probably very few. And it will all be down to the teachers ultimately to plan the lessons as well. There won't be a top-down approach to support these teachers. There never has before. Why would there this time? I've been there so many times with these initiatives. You're roped into teaching it and you're told the resources are already prepared. You just have to deliver the lessons. 100% of the time, this is a lie. I've had it so many times before. They point you in the direction of a filing cabinet drawer. You open it. It's full of sadness and loneliness, and maybe a single cardboard folder of hastily assembled worksheets that I could have produced in a week of half-staff effort. If you're lucky, there's a list of suggested aims and objectives with a schedule for delivery, and if you're really lucky, it will even be deliverable, but there won't be any useful resources. There'll just be a few scabby worksheets that might last you a couple of weeks if you're lucky. And if you're unlucky, they'll be of no use for any lessons. So you'll have to find your own newspaper articles. You'll have to find good and bad ones on the same topic. That'll take time. You'll have to find good and fake news websites. That'll take time. You'll have to trawl for statistics on various matters of public interest. That will take time. And none of this time is spent preparing resources that will help your students pass an assessment for which both you and they are judged on. Do you see the problem here? And this time won't be spent by officials at the Department for Education pooling their resources to then disseminate to the teachers who have to deliver it. Oh, no, 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 no. This will be work replicated by each individual teacher across England and Wales. There will be no coordination. There's no trickle down in education any more than there is in economics. But these won't be the only ones developing resources. Oh, you'll get private organisations spotting an opportunity for a bit of money. They will pull together a very glossy, very eye-catching set of resources that look absolutely fantastic. First, oh, lovely folders. None of this cardboard rubbish. Nice folders. Oh, it comes with full resources online, PowerPoints, all the rest of it. It's magnificent, but completely useless for building lessons around because basically someone just put together a load of eye candy. Some senior teacher at your school will be wowed by a few examples. They'll have designed a couple of really good resources and they'll talk about how they've got this massive suite of resources. They'll show them a couple that look really good and they'll go, wow, that's worth a few £100. And then they'll come to me, oh, Phil, great news. We've got this to help you out with these lessons. All looks really comprehensive. And you look at it, and apart from the couple of examples of decent stuff that they showed your senior teaching leader, it's all bollocks. And you go, you spent how much on this crap, which is useless, without bothering to ask me first? I've had that discussion a few times before. And we'll be 10 years down the line, and critical thinking will still not be being taught properly in our schools. The Tories will be starting to get ready to come back, and then they'll just put it out of its misbegotten misery, and we're back at square minus one. So if this plan is to work, and I appreciate the fact that Phillipson has announced it so quickly means she's probably been planning it for some time. I think that's a good thing. But if it is to work, our new education secretary is going to have to learn how these things really pan out at the chalk face, so to speak. Because she's not a teacher, which is fine. But she does need actual teachers involved in the process and from the ground. Not once some harebrained plan is already at an advanced stage put together by people who have got no idea how things work. If she works on this plan without including actual teachers, I don't mean former teachers or people who spent a couple of years teaching before him instantly going off to become private educator providers. No. Actual teachers right now with experience and experience of being involved in similar initiatives in the past, it is doomed to failure. And it's doomed to follow exactly the same path as every other similar initiative I've ever seen in 20 years. I've seen it too often in the past, and it always starts with the same plan. Fold it into existing lessons. And because that plan doesn't survive contact with reality, because you're asking them to put extra things into lessons without extra time and without any assessment of it, it always ends up going the same way. But I do approve of the idea behind it. And it will be a good test of whether Phillipson is a good administrator or not. Because I've said before, she's not a good politician. She's not made a name for herself when she's had ample opportunity. But that doesn't matter if she's good at running a government department. And this will certainly test her ability to do so. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.